Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far.
A random bully in the Middle East. You mean a country that commits genocide? Pretty sure that was Israel.
Disrupt America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Boy, what a weekend it has been, folks. And sometimes the best way to celebrate the start of summer is to full-frontally announce that you have campaigned on bombing and destroying a said country. A country that you have led up to people believe that they were capable of nuclear weapons, that they were capable of weapons of mass destruction. Oh, I'm getting a deja vu for some reason. And you have fully announced your campaign was successful. So let's hear from the great words of Israel's greatest salesman, Mr. Donald J. Trump, who has said, "We have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan." Very exotic names. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site of Fordo. All planes are now safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great military warriors, our American warriors. This is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I love how all the recent posts he's made makes it sound like an infomercial from the 80s. Thank you for your time for this matter. Yeah, thank you for being conscious enough to be on high alert to realize that the United States just fully attacked on Iran. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Now it's time for peace. After assaulting the country of Iran, now is the time to negotiate. That's like a rapist asking for consent after you've been assaulted. Like, oh, that is just so perfect. That is just, wow. Don't you feel safer? Don't you feel more comfortable now that the United States once again preempted strikes on a country that's been on its bloody laundry list for many, many decades, that Wesley Clark warned us about, that we have exposed in detail? This is not a mystery, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a mystery. This is not just Israel's war. This is something the United States has had in their back pockets for such a long time. So the United States is not innocent in this. They are not defenders. They are the aggressors. They are the ones conducting wars on terror because, of course, in order to have a war on terror, you have to create the terror. And this is one way to do it. Just relentlessly bomb, do a campaign, do a narrative of weapons of mass destruction that we have seen numerous times before, and then do an attack on said country. How do you think they're going to take it? Do you really think they're going to go to the negotiation table after knowing that the United States fully committed into falsifying people into this outrageous war, that Trump's own base, a lot of people within the MAGA movement, not a lot of MAGA influencers, as we're going to see later on, but a lot of people within Trump's base have warned you about that, hey, we should not be doing this. We should not be taking part of this, that this is going to be a bloody war. That, hey, you're supposed to be, ending the Ukraine war. Hey, you're promised to not start a war. You're promised not to do a regime change war. What happened? Oh, that's right. Israel bought you out. That's what happened. So it is just absolutely crazy that this happened. And here is the press announcement. This is from Fox News from late Saturday as of 10:02 p.m. So those who are probably going to bed thinking that, yes, the world's already on fire. Yes, chaos is happening, and thought maybe Trump had this slight instance of not being a warmonger, not being worse than Hillary Clinton or Jeb Bush or any of the other neocons that have surfaced into this swamp. Well, guess what? Donald Trump is part of that swamp. Donald Trump is a warmonger, just like anyone else in the White House. Anyone else. That's why it made no difference whether Donald Trump was president or Kamala Harris. It made no difference whatsoever. You thought this guy was going to shake up the system and drain that swamp? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We saw it with the first attempt that it was a complete catastrophe. It's the first failure. The second attempt, we had false promises. We thought RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, all these individuals, maybe things were going to change. Never happened. It never happened because the swamp is deeply corroded with agitators that are far beyond American politics, far beyond a right versus left party, far beyond the duopoly. So here's Donald Trump announcing this right to the nation after the nation expressively told to tell Donald Trump that they did not want to take part in another war, that they did not want to agitate. They don't want to, do preemptive strikes on a country that's going to lead us in a catastrophic World War III situation, which was going to happen with Iran. But because Donald Trump is surrounded and corroded with the swamp, because he is part of that swamp, World War III is their last resort to keep the hegemony alive, which is why they're doing this. It has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. It has nothing to do with protecting anybody. No defense whatsoever. It is to protect the hegemony. It's there to protect the hegemony, the military-industrial complex, all these empires that have destroyed, that have oppressed people of all sorts around the world. They want to keep that afloat. But here's Donald Trump admitting to this.
Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
Spectacular! After how many months have we saw from Pete Hegseth to Marco Rubio to Donald Trump himself to everybody in this administration threatening to attack Iran? Oh, it's spontaneous now. Oh, it was out of the blue. We had no idea this was coming. Wow. They really must think the average person is that dumb. They really must think that people are not capable of looking things up on the internet, which is what anyone can do right now. It's not rocket science to figure out that foreign affairs from the United States is a complete lie, and not to trust a single person within the administration, within this administration, the Biden administration, the entire system. Do not trust a person, because we know these are all lies. Anyone who has been around since Vietnam, or even to a more recent example, anyone that's been around for the last 20 years. Remember Iraq? Remember the weapons of mass destruction? Remember we were only supposed to stay in Afghanistan to kill Osama bin Laden? Remember killing Gaddafi? Hillary Clinton laughing about it? Ha, we came, we saw, we died. It was never going to end. It was never going to end. So this idea that, Iran has the capabilities of nuclear arsenal and weaponry. Really? Really? Even if hypothetically they did have the capabilities. Think of all the other countries that have nuclear weapons. Think of all the other countries. But Iran is such a threat. They're the biggest grow-ops of terrorism around. Hillary Clinton admitted in 2010 that the United States manufactured the Mujahideen, which led to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They are the state sponsors of terrorism. Again, in order for the United States to have wars on terror, they have to create the terror. Hence why they're doing this. They need to keep the wars on terror afloat. And they're going to lie to you. They're going to manipulate you. They're going to say how dumb and repugnant you are. They're calling out Tucker Carlson for being Qatari funded and Ian Carroll, because God forbid people read things. God forbid people look up the internet. God forbid we look up documents from former administrations that have proven how catastrophic foreign affairs from the United States is. God forbid people being smart. See the rest of this.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far.
A random bully in the Middle East. You mean a country that commits genocide? You mean the one that's been attacking 3 nations in the past 2 years? Oh, yeah, that was all Iran. No, actually, that was Israel, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that was Israel conducting this. The same Israel that tells the United States that Iran is such a big threat. You should go and attack them. But we're not part of this. We're not part of this war. It's so spontaneous. No one had no idea this was going to happen. It's not rocket science to figure this out. And while some people on both the left and the right are cheering about this blindlessly, they're cheering about this, that, oh, we're taking down some enemy state of ours that we've been lied to once again by the same buildings, by the same system, by the same institutions that have lied us into wars many, many times before. They are now in celebration and overjoyed in the fact that once again they're playing the same playbook. Luckily, there are some people that are willing to challenge it. Hence, Matt Gaetz. Remember this guy? The guy who was supposed to be the attorney general, and at the last second, as soon as word got out that this guy was a little too mega, you know what I mean? This guy was a little too much over the top, too far right for the Republican Party, even too far right for the Trump administration. Yeah, I guess we're going to start, revealing some random sexual exploitations and assaults and all these claims that he was hanging out with underage girls. Which even if that was true, even if those assault claims turn out to be correct, look who's telling you that. Look at the people that are pointing the finger at Matt Gaetz, telling you that this guy is a pervert. The whole entire institution is full of nothing but perverts and pedophiles. Or should we say children of the fans of the playground, to make it more, YouTube appropriate. But here's Matt Gaetz. This is him on OAN, One American News, because you can't say this on any media outlet, so you have to go to an internet source who's going to explain to you how Israel and the United States are at fault for this. And while they're pointing the finger at Iran, saying that Iran is the guilty one of this, that there's been a long history of Israel and the United States building up this momentum. So listen to this.
But Matt, Iran has kicked out IAEA inspectors. There could be portions of their nuclear program that are secret. A nuclear secret in the Middle East. How about it? If the world is interested in a secret nuclear program in the Middle East, there is a country that won't allow any international inspectors. Israel. Israel has a nuclear weapon. Did you know that? I do. They allow no inspections. They are fully secretive and
So does the United States. So does Russia. So does China. So does North Korea. So does a lot of countries. A lot of countries have nuclear weapons. And in a perfect world, I would say there would be no use for nuclear weapons because nuclear weapons is catastrophic. Any country whatsoever that uses nuclear weapons is a dire death sentence for the rest of humanity. And that's not a hyperbole. That's experts who analyze nuclear assault and nuclear warfare. Look up, what's her face? Abby Jacobson. She writes countless books about the deadliness of humanity after nuclear warfare, how we need to denuclearize countries, how we need to de-escalate the tension so we could avoid a conflict like this. In a perfect world, we should be doing that. But because we have bloodthirsty maniacs, psychopaths, immoral psychopaths at the top power of these institutions, of these countries, everywhere around the world, It is at a point where you cannot trust any of these people. You cannot trust any of these people with your safety, with defending you. If they have the capability of possessing nuclear weapons and the catastrophic damages they do to their own people. Do you trust the United States after what they have done to their own citizens, the same country that has a bunch of nuclear weapons? Do you think they're going to pretend to protect you? Do you think they're going to defend you in any which way or form?
And clandestine about it, and the Americans are fully aware. You know what? I don't even blame Israel for this. If they want to develop a nuclear weapon, if they had the blessing to do so secretly, I'm not in judgment of that. But to drag the world into a regime change war over secret nuclear weapons, when you have secret nuclear weapons, is a bit hypocritical. So here's the deal. How about Iran and Israel both give up their secret nuclear weapon programs? If Trump got that deal, he wouldn't only get the Nobel Peace Prize, they'd probably name it the Trump Peace Prize forevermore. And it's not that crazy to think about Israel denuclearizing. Look at the model in South Africa. South Africa denuclearized right before they stopped being an apartheid state. Prominent voices in Israel and America have called for Trump to recognize Israel's sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, which some people call the West Bank. If that happens, Israel will have to let the 5 to 6 million people who live there vote. And they don't want to do that. I'm not calling Israel an apartheid state. Right now, I don't think they are. But if they are ruling the West Bank.
Wow. Bringing that fact out and then trying to roll back by saying, look, I'm not calling Israel an apartheid state. I feel like he knows even at a place like OAN, that's a little too much truth for their audience. That's a little too much insight. That's a little too much for people to realize. Because God forbid if that gets revealed, then people will start questioning more things. And then, holy crap, that's when anti-Semitism is a high alert and DEFCON 1 is at effect. And oh my God, we got to stop this. Even though it's nothing to do with Judaism, nothing to do with Christianity, nothing to do with any religion whatsoever. In fact, the whole purpose of Israel even existing is exactly what RFK Jr. described it as, an aircraft carrier. It's a military op. They needed strategically to be in that location, to be the eyes and ears, and to be stationed geographically around Middle Eastern territories that they also want to invade. That's why Israel and the United States have similar enemies. Coincidence?
As the neocons would suggest, then the South Africa model for denuclearization is not totally off base. There's a certain bravado at the beginning of a Middle East regime change war. There's enthusiasm, bold predictions of swift victory, and usually a total misunderstanding of what happens next. Oh, Iraq wasn't prepared. Daisy cutter? This is how easily the so-called foreign policy experts believed we would carve our way through Iraq. I saw how many of our bravest patriots were pushing up daisies as a consequence of that war. I went to their funerals. I visited their grave sites. I saw the true cost of a flawed regime change war in the Middle East. The problem is we had no plan to get out. Iraq cost America $3 trillion, and this distraction and disaster aided in both the rise of China and ISIS. Whoever was telling you that we had the ability to topple a regime in Iraq and then come out with something better was either one, lying to you, or two, so wholly ignorant about the country they were invading that their lack of knowledge or curiosity or understanding led to blood and terrorism and chaos. So as we approach the 2025 vintage of regime change wars in Iran, I wonder if those now cheerleading attacks on Iran know anything about the country they want to topple.
Boy, no wonder this guy wasn't fit to be the Attorney General. That's too much, gentlemen, too much. This guy needs to go. I'm telling you, this guy talking about the importance of America and the importance of understanding countries that you bomb. What are you, Tucker Carlson? You're gonna start asking populations of enemy states that you want to attack? What is this? What is this? Of course, that's why you point the finger at someone and claim that they're a pedophile. And like I said, even if those assault claims are true, we don't know for sure, but even if they do come conclusively true, look who's making those statements. Look who's making those arguments. Look what club is pointing the finger at each other to say who's a criminal and who isn't. Like, it's a giant club and you ain't in it, as George Carlin would say. It's a giant bloodthirsty cult. So that leads to this. This is from Current Affairs, or as I would say, at Current Affair. I watch the Australian version sometimes on YouTube. At Current Affair. They wrote this article here. It says, wait, why is Israel allowed to have nukes? Good question. That's a good question. I'm sure this is very anti-Semitic of them to publish this, but that's a concerning question. Why is this nation that apparently we're defending and giving all our military resources and threatening to send troops over there to defend, why did they allow to have nuclear weapons? Why are they allowed to do it? Why are they allowed compared to Iran? Why are we so worried about Russia having nuclear weapons when Israel, who's attacked many nations in just the past 2 years? Why are they allowed to have nuclear weapons? Well, let's see about this. So it goes on. I'm not going to read all of this, but here's some statements about it. Among U.S. politicians, there are one consistent narrative you'll hear repeated over and over. Iran, the story goes, must not be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. Iran is unstable and untrustworthy. Iran is a theocratic. Iran is evil. Supposedly serious adults like Senator Ted Cruz will use the words the bad guys to describe the country like 3-year-olds playing with action figures. I mean, I compare it to like Michael Bay films. Like, it's always the good versus evil. And if the story doesn't work, well, just add more bombs, add more explosives. Even if the dialogue is complete crap, people are just going to buy it because, ooh, look, big bomb. Ooh. No offense to people that like Transformers. Just saying. And because Iranians are the bad guys, it's supposedly legitimate to attack and kill them in order to prevent them from ever getting that terrifying nuke. Donald Trump is consistent, considering that very move now, posting in all caps that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and threatening to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. On Twitter, J.D. Vance echoes Trump threatening action to end Iranian enrichment. But it's not just Republicans. Trump and Vance have been egged on by their unsustainable enemy, Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who recently condemned the president for attempting nuclear negotiations, calling him a chicken who would let Iran get away with everything. So, all these people that are claiming that, well, since Trump is leading us to World War III, this is why we need Kamala Harris. Would have done the same. They would have done the same because guess what? Both these parties, the duopoly, is so deeply corroded. They have blood on their hands. They're soaked in the blood of lives and humanity all across the world. These are sinister people. These are demonic people. And you don't give them an ounce of trust. You don't give them an ounce of dignity to figure out who exactly is your enemy. Because while they're claiming that Iran is your enemy, that we have to go and attack, we got to siphon your tax dollars, send it off to Israel so that we can help them fight these bad guys. The real bad guys are the people within your administration that's taking away your rights, that's turning your nation into a surveillance state. Remember that? Remember that? Palantir committing to tracking and surveilling, making a massive AI platform to conceal all of America's data so they can spy, surveil, and blackmail you. Oh, yeah, that's right. Then we started attacking Iran to cover up that story. Just a coincidence, right? Just a coincidence. So further along, it says, according to estimates by the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation, published recently in the New York Times, Israel has at least 90 nuclear warheads and enough fissile material to produce up to hundreds more. President Jimmy Carter, who was in the position to know, said in 2014 that he believed the closest number is to 300 or more. Nobody knows exactly how many. Nobody knows. But again, Iran is the place we're supposed to be worried about. Russia's supposed to be the place we're worried about. China's the place we're supposed to be worried about. This is our so-called greatest ally, making nuclear weapons, blackmailing and assaulting said allied nations to bend the knee towards their wills, and no one knows how many nuclear weapons they're creating. How is that not problematic? How is that not problematic? If you are a Jewish Zionist or a Christian Zionist, how is this not problematic? Oh, that's right. Because they don't talk about these issues. They don't criticize Israel. Because to criticize Israel is apparently anti-Semitic, which has nothing to do with either. It's not Judaism. So there's another point here I wanted to brief on this article is Israel's actually breaking U.S. law. Not international law, but U.S. law. So under here it says, under U.S. law, Israel's rogue nuclear program means that the United States should not be supplying it with military aid of any kind. Again, this is under U.S. law, not international law. So they can't even say that the international court is vastly corrupted and full of anti-Semites. No, this is the United States. This is your own government, your own judiciary pointing this out. The law in question is that the International Security Assistance and Arms Export Control Act of 1976, and its language is ambiguous. But for more than 50 years now, U.S. leaders have been willing to ignore their own laws and accept this uneasy state of affairs. A 1993 report by the Congressional Office of Technology Assessment titled Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction, Assessing the Risks, sums up the rationale well. Would the United States be willing to sacrifice its relationship with Israel and possible risk Israeli national survival to pressure that state to give up a nuclear arsenal if it believes essential to its security? For successful administrations, that answer has been no. It would be easier and cause fewer problems to just let the issue be. For the part, heads of the state, from Yitzhak Rabin to Benjamin Netanyahu, have pledged that Israel would not be the first to introduce nuclear weapons in the Middle East. Even that is another example of the strategic ambiguity at work, because introduce can be taken to mean Israel would not create weapons and has already or meant to be used or publicly acknowledged to them. But the underlying assumption for U.S. policymakers tinged has been said that with Islamophobia and anti-Arab racism has been the Israelis are responsible stewards of the bomb in a way that Egyptians and Jordanians or most of all Iranians would be not. The problem is we look at Israel's actions and not our own words and not its words. There's a strong case to doubt that assessment and the situation have gone dramatically worse in the last few years. Again, the greatest ally, the most, democratic state in the Middle East. We can't even ask the simple question of, hey, you're developing nuclear weapons. How many nuclear weapons do you have? You can't even ask your allied nation that. How do you believe that it's a secular nation? How do you believe that it's good for the people to have a supposed friend have this much arsenal that could devastate humanity? So, Matt Gaetz is kind of on point with this. Matt Gaetz has something to say when it comes to denuclearization. Hey, if you are demanding the Iranians to denuclearize and stop their nuclear programs, then you should be asking for the other side of the argument. That if you want denuclearization, then both parties have to commit to it. But both parties will not commit to it. And both parties are guilty of this. And same with the United States, because the United States had a nuclear treaty on board and could easily negotiate through this. That's what even Donald Trump stated. He even told Obama back in the day that Obama would be stupid to attack Iran. You have to negotiate. You have to negotiate. Well, guess what? Now he's president. Did he negotiate? No. In fact, he took down the nuclear treaty as a favor to Israel. So, Donald Trump is deeply involved with treasonous acts. Donald Trump is definitely convicted of having an administration completely cultivized by a foreign entity. But the only reason that never gets discussed, and the only reason they point the finger at Russia, of all places, is because the Democrats are also complicit. The entire administration, the entire federal government, the entire American governmental system is deeply corroded with ties with our greatest ally that's capable of this. And why? Why would they do this? Why would we get ourselves in this outrageous war? Well, because of this. The war is not meant to be won. It is meant to be continuous. And there's all the examples from back in the day. There's Harry Truman, Korea, Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia, Beirut and Grenada, Panama, Iraq and Somalia, Bosnia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen, and now Donald Trump with Iran. And that's just to name a few. There's a huge laundry list. That's not including Ukraine. That doesn't include all of our meddling that we've done in Latin America. That doesn't include all the overthrowing governments that caused this problem. Which, by the way, if you're angry at the Iranian government, there's another thing. If you're angry at this government and angry at the supposed dictatorship that Iran possesses, you can thank your own government for that. You can thank the CIA for overthrowing the Iranian democratically elected government in the 50s that caused this to start. So don't believe for an instant that America's innocent in this, that they're defending somebody, that, oh, they're just trying to do their best interest for people. They want this war to go, and they're igniting this war because they're worried that if Trump had the capabilities to end, say, the Ukraine war, they're worried that there's no more wars, and they have to keep wars going. Look at Afghanistan, for example. Why was it such a horrible withdrawal? Is because they want to keep the Afghanistan war going. That's why they accidentally left billions of dollars of weaponry to the Taliban. Not by mistake. It's because, hey, we're going to give the terrorists more weapons so that eventually we'll have to go back. For that exact reason. The war isn't meant to be won or resolved or have a conclusion. There's no end game to this. They want to keep it continuous, to keep people at bay, to keep people paranoid, to keep us against each other and against other nations that just want to be left alone. Just like any other nation, they just want to be left alone. They don't want to be meddled with. They don't want to have these, lobby firms tracking, surveilling, and counteracting their measures. Countries just want to be left alone. People want to be left alone. And the people that just want to live a normal life and already have a million and one other problems domestically don't want to get themselves involved in this. And we know from the start that it was that was a lie leading to doom, leading to catastrophe. And it's amazing that people are cheering for this when all the signs have been pointing that this is a lie. All the signs are there. We knew this was coming. We knew that Donald Trump was going to eventually fold and be pressured by the deep state to commit these atrocities. Donald Trump is not your savior. Donald Trump is not MAGA. He's just another part Another cog in the machine that's willing to sacrifice your livelihood for their own interest.